Hey y'all, it's Kate from Love Story, and today I'm going to be doing the Positions book tag, which was an original tag created by Rachel at Let Me in the Library. She created this and then she tagged me on book Twitter, and hopefully you guys can hear me this time because I did this once already and the audio was so weird on it. So as you can tell, I'm filming from the office, so it's a little weird to film from my phone, and I'm just sitting here holding the phone up. And I've got the questions and my answers up on my computer, so if you see me looking away, either I've forgotten that I'm filming and I'm just talking to myself, or I'm looking at the questions. So this tag is set up based on Ariana Grande's album Positions, and Rachel took each one of the songs off of the album and created a prompt for them. So let's just jump right in. I've never heard an Ariana Grande album. As you can tell, I can't even say her name right. I listen to mostly 80s music. I'm stuck in the 80s, forever in the 80s. I love 80s. It's the jam. So most of my answers will be completely off point for Ariana Grande, but this is how the fun tags begin. So let's just jump right in. Prompt number 1 says, shut up, a book you couldn't shut up about. And this, I would have to say, is Harry Potter. This series, definitely. It's part of my unconscious, and I refer to this series when I don't even realize I am. I'm always saying, you know, this happened in this Harry Potter book. This happened to this character. JK did this more often than I really realize I'm doing, more often than I know I'm doing. And now it's gotten to the point where my boyfriend Howard can anticipate my Harry Potter references and say them ahead of me. So that's fun. Prompt number 2, 34 plus 35, a book that you stayed up to finish. And the last one that I stayed up all night, way past my bedtime reading, was Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. I just loved this book so much. I've done a review on it, and I'll link it here in the description and up above in the cards. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. It was so fantastic. I loved all of the characters. They were kind of murky characters in that none of them were completely bad, even the guilty person, and none of them were really completely good. They all had their own motives, and they were just really complex and amazing characters. And the other reason why I really loved this book was that it doesn't fit in just one genre. It has so much stuff going on that it's in a lot of different genres. So, Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens, a book that you stayed up to finish. Prompt number 3, motive, a book that left you questioning everything. And this book for me is White Fragility, Why It's So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism by Robin DiAngelo. I read this book earlier this year when the Black Lives Matter was a huge hype. It's still going now. Black people still need to be treated the same as everyone else. Everyone should be treated the same as everyone. But during that big hype, a lot of people were reading anti-racist books, and I picked this book up on ebook, and it changed everything. It made me think about how I talk and how I react, and the internal biases that I have, because Robin DiAngelo says, everyone has biases, it's just how you react to them that makes it racism and discrimination. And so you shouldn't be ashamed necessarily of your biases, but just be conscious of how you react to those. And that book really made me conscious of that, and also conscious of how other people talked about people and events and everything going on. Next prompt says, Just Like Magic, a book with all your favorite tropes. And this one is hard for me because I don't necessarily think of tropes when I'm reading. So I just picked a book that I loved everything about it. Like, it had everything, a lot of things that I loved in it. And that's The Little Paris Bookshop by Nina George. And this book, first of all, gave me an idea for my dream career, to open up this bookshop/library where it deals with bibliotherapy, using books for therapy instead of like medicine, and being able to get every customer the perfect book. And that was the main character's goal in life was to find a perfect book for every person he came across. And he had this little shop on like this boat on the river in Paris, and it was just so cute and romantic, and I love this book so much. I'm going to read this so many times. But it gave me that idea for the Literary Apothecary, which I'll also link down in the descriptions. Right now it's an online used bookstore. Go check that out too. The next prompt is Off the Table, a book that raised your standards. And this book for me was Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. And I say that it raised my standards because before then I hadn't really read adult fantasy hardly at all. I read Harry Potter and the Magicians and like his Dark Materials trilogy, those kinds of books, but all of those I consider either YA or children's books. So to me, I hadn't really read an adult fantasy book until now, and so this got me thinking in fantasy in totally different ways. And while I was reading it, I was thinking there's not really a lot of plot here. There's not a lot going on. It's mostly character driven. The characters are great, but there's not a lot going on. But then by the end, it had me thinking completely different about the book. When I thought there wasn't a lot going on, there was actually so much going on. So that raised my standards in that it made me think of the book and other books in totally different ways, and got me into adult fantasy. Next prompt says 630, a problematic book you love anyways. And this for me is all of Hemingway's books. Ernest Hemingway is one of my weird obsessions that started in high school, continued into college, and even into grad school. And he's a problematic guy. He's very sexist, probably racist. He wasn't a great guy at all. He was a horrible guy. But, and his writing at the time was revolutionary. It was huge. But looking at it now in the future, it's not that great. Like, it's good. I like the minimalistic approach. But I've read much better books, but I'm still like, his books are so nostalgic to me that I have a hard time getting rid of them. The next prompt is Safety Net, a book you immediately knew was a 5-star read. And for me, this was the memoir, Me, by Elton John. I love Elton John, and I love his music and his story. And as soon as I heard that he was writing a memoir and publishing a memoir, I knew that this was going to be a book for me. And I read it, and I was completely blown away. I knew it was going to be a 5-star read, and if I could give it more than that, I would have. It was an amazing book. I highly recommend that. That's Me by Elton John. The next prompt says, My Hair, a well-known author whose work you haven't touched but are interested in. And this, for me, is a lot of different authors, but the first one that came to my mind is Jason Reynolds. I've seen plenty of interviews with him and speeches made by him in favor of libraries and children's literacy. I think he's a literacy I forget his title with the ALA, but he's an advocate for childhood literacy and a really great advocate just for books in general and literacy and libraries. An amazing guy. But I haven't read any of his books yet, but I'm going to remedy that next year, I promise, because I really want to read his books. I've heard such great things about them. The next prompt is Nasty, a new release you can't wait to read. And that, for me, you've heard me talk about this book before, and I'm sorry to repeat myself, but it's A Promised Land by Barack Obama. This is Obama's new book that just came out on the 17th. And I can't wait to read that, along with his other books that I haven't actually read yet. But this one I've heard such amazing things about, and I love Barack Obama. Sorry, Benedict Leperch, but I love him. So I can't wait to read that eventually someday, and there will be a review when I do that. The next prompt says, West Side, your favorite series. And besides Harry Potter, my next favorite series is definitely Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. I love this series. I love the TV series. It is it's so good because it's got the romance, it's got the action, it's historical fiction, which I love. It's one of my favorite genres. It's Scotland, it's Scottish guys, it's the future, time traveling. It's got like everything that I love in it. And so that is probably my next favorite series. And I can't wait for the next book to come out next year. Hopefully, Diana, keep writing. We're dying for your next book, book 9. It's been like 4 or 5 years at least, maybe longer since the last book came out. And we're just dying for the next book to find out what happens to Jamie and Claire. The next prompt, Love Language, a comfort book you keep returning to. And for me, this is a book that I know I will return to in the future. I've only read it once, but I loved it. And that's The Bookshop on the Corner by Jenny Colgan. And one of the reasons why I love this book is because that is my dream. So our main character moves to Scotland and opens this little bookshop that's in like a van or a bus. I think it's a van, or big van. And that's like my dream right there. That's exactly what I want to do in the future. So I know I'll return back to this because it was a great book to begin with, but it's also my dream. So I'll be returning to that many times. The next prompt is the title song, Positions, a book that subverted a cliche. And for me, this book could also be for the next prompt, but I used it for this prompt. And that's Atomic Habits, an essay, easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones by James Clear. And this is a self-help book, and I don't read a lot of these kinds of books. But this one subverted my cliche because it was different than all the other self-help books that I've read. It didn't make me feel guilty about what I did. And the title says how to break bad habits, but it's more about building good and better habits and less about actually, it has less focus on the bad and more focus on the good, just building those good habits. Because we all have bad habits. It's just part of life. And so this book I liked more than other self-help books because it didn't make me feel ashamed and it focused more on the good instead of the bad. And then the next prompt is Obvious, a book you loved from a genre you don't normally read. And for me, I'm going to say, since I'm just getting into adult fantasy, this would be The Final Empire, the first book of the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson. And I just finished reading this book a couple weeks ago, and I'm picking that book 2 up from the library today after work, and I can't wait to go on it. But I loved this book because it was a different type of magic than what I've seen. There's no wand waving and magic spells, that kind of stuff. They get their magic from burning metals inside them, and that was completely fascinating to me. And I loved all the characters and the story, and I can't wait to see where it goes next with book 2. And the last prompt, bear with me, is POV, a book you'd love to see told from a different point of view. Now, I've already talked about in other videos how I want to see Harry Potter from Neville and Voldemort's point of views. I think those 2 series would be amazing. I wish someone would write them. But since I already used Harry Potter for one of the other prompts, I'm going to say The Devil Wears Prada by Lauren Weisberger. And I say this because this was the book that pushed me to DNF future books, and it's a book that I wish I had DNF'd because I really didn't enjoy it at all. But I think if it was told from Miranda's point of view, the boss, I would have enjoyed it so much more because she was the only character that I felt I could relate to and I can sympathize with. And so if it was told from her point of view instead of Andy's point of view, I think I would have enjoyed that a lot more. Anyways, that is the Positions book tag created by Rachel at Let Me in the Library. And if you liked this, consider yourself tagged and go ahead and do it. I also tag Gregory, aka Benedict LaPerche, Abby Salter, Kim at Breadsticks and Books, and Andy at Read by Andy. And I will link all of those channels also in the description. Go check them out. Subscribe to all of them if you haven't already yet. They are amazing friends that I've made on Discord, and I love them to pieces. And that's it for now. Happy weekend. Let me know your answers to these questions in the description, in the comments, and we'll see you all soon. Love you. Bye.